That's
All right, it's about that time when we get into that conversation I promised on Chan 2024, the glory and the lessons. And you heard from them a little earlier on, but let me just reintroduce them. We have Jacob Ghost Mule in studio, former coach Harambee Stars. We also have Lord Vic Aduda, who is the former CEO FKF. He is joining us from Kisumu. Apologies from Sami Pamzo Omolo, who says unfortunately his vehicle has been blocked, so he was unable to make it out of the stadium in time. But Ghost Coach,
yes.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Benny McCarthy was instrumental to the Harambee Stars' performance in this Chan 2024? They made it all the way to the quarterfinals, and there are some who still believe they could have gone farther.
Well, I think by bringing Benny McCarthy was a very good choice in a tournament that when you look at Kenya's group of death, nobody ever fathomed that we could beat Morocco, the eventual winners. Leave alone leading that group. I mean, we had DRC who has won it twice. Morocco has won it twice. Now they make a history having won it 3 times. And I believe that Benny has brought a lot of smiles to Kenyans. We were able to believe we still have talent in this country. And the way he organized the team, of course, there are many things that we need to have a case study as coaches, because changing like another game, 7 players in one game and then winning it, that was very big confidence from Benny. And also bringing players that have not played at the international stage and performing. So I would say that I previously said that the stars have aligned for Kenyan football. So Benny was the right coach at the right time. We didn't make it to the finals, but it was exciting to lead a group and to beat the eventual winners. And then the new players that he brought in, I was sympathizing with him because just 5 weeks that he had to prepare the team. He went to Tanzania, he came back, he didn't play the Sekafa tournament, but he said there's no need of wasting time there. He came here, organized a team in a very short span. He lost some players like Osoro, went to Zambia. We had Bajaber who went to Tanzania, and people are thinking like we would not have a good team. But he was able to assemble under pressure a team that gave us a lot of joy and a team that gives us hope for the future.
All right. So, Lord Vic, you said it was a quick turnaround where
Yes.
the coach is concerned. But, Lord Vic, we had the FKF, the serving FKF CEO, Hussein Mohammed, who talked about how they did not interfere with the team selection. Do you think that was part of the winning strategy?
Well, it is not the responsibility of the FKF leadership to interfere with the team selection. That is why, you know, structurally, the head coach is in charge of the team selection and the team preparation. So it is nothing to really pride about, because that is exactly why we have the national team coach. I am aware that in certain quarters at times, you know, there are particular players that probably have, you know, people who would want to push them into the collapse with the national team. But that is a backward behavior if at all, you know, somebody was thinking about it. I believe that we are just started. And part of the reason why I say we have just started is the fact that we exposed local players plying their trade in the local clubs. It is an opportunity to learn from, especially given that this exposure has also opened ways, or would open ways, for the local talent that has, you know, been participating in the Chan matches. People talked about our group being the group of death, but they forgot that all these players who are playing, who are turning out for their respective teams in Chan, ply their trade in the local leagues. None of the so-called professionals, even when we take the example of Morocco, none of the players who turned out for them during the World Cup who currently play in the professional leagues who are part of this particular team. So it means that we need to organize ourselves, we need to organize our clubs, and we need to give the players an opportunity, right, to showcase their talents in the local league. But that behoves another major requirement, that there ought to be a lot of incentives put into football. The incentives that were availed by the president or by the government through the sports fund, we saw what eventually it did to the performance of the boys.
All right, so incentives. You're saying incentives played a big role in how we performed. As a former coach, Ghost, did you experience pressure from quote-unquote godfathers? I think that's how one of our viewers put it when we've been receiving feedback in the course of this CHAN. Or were you free to select your team, free to bring in your technical team?
Well, let me tell you, all the time that I've coached the Harambee Stars, no, I've had that kind of pressure, but I've never succumbed to that kind of pressure, because at the end of the day, I remember in one of the games, I named my team very early when I was in charge against Togo. My first game in charge, I was then 35 years, and somebody came and told me that the people are complaining, because I named my team on a Thursday. I say, what are they complaining about? And the senior member of the Football Federation, I say, they are complaining about your first 11. And then I asked him, what do you mean? I mean, I went to Holland to learn football. I went to Germany to study my football. So what are you telling me? And I wouldn't say what he said, but I told him, you know what? If Kenya loses tomorrow, it's not going to be Ghost Mulee and you. It's going to be Ghost as the coach. And I played the same team that I selected. And they beat Togo 3-0 with Adebayo in. So when you really, you allow such, then when you fail, the blame goes to you. So I don't think there's any team or any coach who will be allowed to be interfered with in terms of selection. Benny McCarthy is a professional coach. He has come in, he had not seen many of the local players, but when he watches them in training, he makes decisions and he can drop any player anytime. And I remember the late Fabish, I was his assistant, God rest his soul in eternal peace. He said, Harambee Stars is like a rotating door. I can call you tomorrow, you have a Kenyan passport, and you can play for the national team tomorrow. So that's not something that needs to be done. But I think there's a sigh of relief, because from the previous administration, there were rumors that some players were being pushed into the team or coaches were being forced. But with Benny McCarthy, I don't think he has time for such. All right.
So, okay. Lord Vic, you talked about incentives. Do you think incentives, that bonus that the players were getting for every win, $1,500,000 for a draw and affordable houses, do you think that for you was a determining factor in terms of how well they played?
Push that away, because look at, for instance, the 19-year-old boy. Yeah. This is the first time that he's got a call-up into the national team. Don't you really think that if he gets an opportunity to, be fielded, and he has that kind of an incentive, would he not perform? I mean, let's be realistic. Now, I will give an example. For example, the Taifa Stars. The level of the local players in Tanzania has been upped up. Why? Because the local league, Premier League in Tanzania now, it is the most organized in the region and the most lucrative in the region. Courtesy of what? The incentives. We find that the top teams in Tanzania at the moment, Simba, Yanga, Singida, Black Stars, and Azam, can afford to pay their players as much as $7,000, $8,000 per month. I mean, really, what are we talking about? That means that they can be able to attract some of the top talents in the continent, particularly from a western part of Africa. Now, given that these players can go and join these teams and get that kind of, payment in terms of salaries and allowances, has also been able to make the Tanzanian local players have a push, and they end up having, to up their game. Now, the result of that, we can see that in the past 2 seasons, we have had Yanga, the losing finalists at CC. Last edition, we have seen Simba, the losing finalist at CAF Confederations Cup final. You don't get to that level if you do not have motivated and top-notch kind of players. So these are some of the positives that I believe that as a country, that is not just a responsibility of the federation. It is now the responsibility of the country, because we are also talking about, lack of employment. But we have seen that talent can really pay. Can you imagine 5.5 million in 30 days? Is that not an incentive to even other aspiring players that if I work hard, I train well, I develop my talent, at some point I might also be in a position to join the national team and have the opportunity to change my life.
All right.
So that equally played an important role, in as much as like what Coach Ghost has said, that Benny McCarthy, having been a player, knows exactly what it means and what it takes to participate in a tournament of CHAN's stature.
All right. So, Ghost, Coach, you talked about a revolving door, Harambee Stars, being a revolving door. It has also been a revolving door for coaches. And many times it comes down to they're not paid in full, they're not paid on time. What has been your experience where that is concerned, and how important is that?
Please stop that of not being paid. I've not been paid since 2013 when I was technical director for FKF. It's just the other day I was talking to Hussein Mohamed, and he said, and it's something that is in the open. I mean, FIFA has already said there are debts that had been incurred by the previous federation. Okay, I will tell you a story. I mean, even 2010, we went to Tanzania to play Sekafa. We've not been paid allowances to date. So there are many players and coaches who have not been paid. But the good thing is what I'm seeing today in Kenyan football, and what is a big investment. And Aduda has talked about Tanzanian League. Our football now needs to come back to reality. Harambee Stars, I would say President William Ruto made a very big contribution to Harambee Stars' success. There are so many factors that are involved. First of all, it's the technical. We have two cadres in football. We have the technical part and we have the administration. Okay, today I'm very proud because I see Mariga as the deputy president. He was my player in the national team. Harold Ndege was the CEO. He was my player in Tusker national team. Then Boniface Sambani is now the president of FC Leopard. We are having a lot of former footballers coming into the administration. And then Hussein Mohamed as the president of the federation. He is a guy who is supposed to bring now the administration side and finances to finance the technical. Tanzania, why they have moved to the another level is because, first of all, transparency and accountability. I'll tell you, Police have won the league for Kenyan League last year. I think they'll get 5 million. Yanga, who won the Tanzania Premier League, they got around 200 million Kenya shillings. They are participating in the CAF and Confederation. Football is big business, and that's why today we don't have a Tanzania playing in the Kenyan League. If there is, very few. All players from Kenya, coaches, are going now to Tanzania. Why? Aduda just said one of the players, I did my research, the top paid player today in Tanzania played for Azam is getting $25,000 per month. That is his salary. Okay, so that is what we need. Now that we have come from CHAN, we have seen what an incentive from the president can do, plus other factors. We need to push to our league to another level. We need to increase our salaries so that players can stay here. Otherwise, all our players will be going to the Tanzanian League. Yesteryears, when SuperSport was producing in Kenya, we had a lot of Tanzania players coming to Kenya because they were being seen by other scouts. And Kenya was a lucrative league. You remember when we had all this Everton coming to Kenya under SportPesa sponsorship, there was so much goodwill. But right now, I think we need to pick from this momentum and move it to the next level. I mean, when you play football, is big business now, but in Kenya, it's still not business, because if you win, for instance, you do business. I know a club spends around 80 million a year. When you win the championship, you get 5 million. Are we talking business? And Police, in one of their games in Continental, they will lose 15 million to go play home and away. So we need to change the narrative. Now that the president has shown the way, let the corporate world also come in and join hands. Because Simba, Yanga, who are champions of Tanzania, they have the media sponsor in Azam. They want some money. They have the league sponsor, one of the banks in Tanzania, 100 million. And then they also have their sponsors. So collectively, that is what the 200 million I'm talking about, equivalent Kenya shillings, around 3.5 billion Tanzania shilling. So football is money. And if we can bring the corporate world, who have gotten some leeway in terms of government, there is I think there is a waiver that they get if they sponsor sports. Oh. They should take advantage of that. Okay.
Quickly, before I ask Aduda to speak finally on the key takeaways of this CHAN 2024, how we maintain the momentum. This was meant to showcase local club football. There was some feedback we received that, the players selected did not necessarily represent the vast array of clubs.
In terms of player selection, you don't have to really make a regional balance. Okay, it's like saying athletics. We know most of our athletes, the best, are coming from Rift Valley. So they are talented. I would say in terms of team selection, you don't look at regional, you just look at raw talent. What is there to be given? So you cannot really say that there was no balance. No, I would say, and there is a very easy way of saving. The top players play at the top clubs. That is the Premier League. And that is where McCarthy has picked his players from. So there is a saving system that does that. But just before you go to Aduda, I think we have got a lot of benefits from this CHAN. Number one, in terms of economy, we have seen visitors coming, like 54 president of CAF have landed in Nairobi just the other day to come and watch the CHAN. That's money. That's hotel money. All these clubs that have played here, 19 teams that came to East African region, that is money. Volunteers, a local organizing committee. We now know that AFCON is coming in 2027. The lessons learned, we know that what is supposed to be done and what is not supposed to be done. So there is a lot of things that we have benefited from this. Tourism. We had teams, when they are eliminated, they go to Nairobi National Park. Kenya is a unique country that even I know, CAF have loved Kenya. So I hope that Kenya is going to benefit more from what we have seen. I mean, all the officials from CAF were staying in Nairobi. The referees were staying in Nairobi. Go and officiate a game in Zanzibar, Tanzania, Uganda, and back to Nairobi. Why? Because Kenya has the infrastructure that we need. And I want to say, really, for the fans, they also played a big, big role for Harambee Stars to be able to reach where they did.
All right. Lord Vic, have the last word. My question to you is, how do we build on this momentum? There were concerns over infrastructure that caused delays, but we finally got here. How do we, build on what we've already, the foundation we've laid?
Well, it is important to note that the tournament basically belongs to CAF, but Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania were given the hosting rights. So there are certain technical parameters that must, be adhered to, with respect to the standards of CAF. Now, that is why at some point at the beginning, we were not getting things right. It's unfortunate that we ended up being fined by CAF, but that is part of learning. I believe that this was a precursor to, what is coming, the big stage which is coming up, hopefully in 2027. But there's always room to learn. Now, something else that we need to do is to realize why Morocco, ultimately, in as much as we won, against them, but what was the consistency that led to their, team eventually being declared or winning, the CHAN trophy? There are several, lessons that we can learn, more particularly with respect to, player development. And it is therefore an opportunity for the new leadership at FKF to do the correct things. I believe, and I would propose at this particular moment, that there is need to amend the FKF constitution so that it includes the primary, sections of player development. That is, the Kenya Primary Schools Sports Association should be a member of FKF. Kenya Secondary Schools Sports Association should be a member of FKF. And the Kenya Colleges Sports Association should be a member of FKF. Now, this can only be effectively handled if there is a proper, conveyor belt where we identify the talents and nurture the talents through, progressing each youth group, engagement. Because when Osoro left, basically at some point we got almost stranded, and we panicked because we never had the kind of strikers that we could be able to, enlist in the national team. But with a good system of enhancing the conveyor belt, we will eventually, not have a quick fix, but develop, with the time such that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, then Kenyan football will really be where it is supposed to be. And that is the only moment that we can be able to attract, the corporate sponsorships. I take the opportunity to thank the president and the government and the minister, to have really shown that the sports fund can be used for such kind of incentive moments. And we can, at the end of the day, make the country proud. And the last thing I mentioned about that is the fact that we used football to show that we can be a cohesive society. For the past 1 month that Chan was here, we were all Kenyans. And I believe that we ought to use this kind of a good gesture to continue enhancing the essence of brotherhood and togetherness, and we will move this country forward. Thank you.
All right, that's a good note on which to press pause on the conversation, because this is a conversation that needs to continue. I know Sporty Monday will be getting into it as well, but allow me to thank my guests for this evening. Jacob Ghost-Mulee, who is former coach, Harambee Stars, and we've had Lodvik Kaduda, former FKF CEO in Kisumu, joining us from Kisumu. Thank you so very much. Apologies from Sami Pamzo Molo. He got stranded. He was unable to make it on time, but I'm sure we'll find another opportunity to host him. We take a break, but Citizen Weekend continues on the other side.